Okay, I'd like to call the meeting for the Finance Committee 3/10/2026 meeting to order. First order of business is public comment. There's nobody here in the room. Does anybody online or remote wish to say anything? Okay. Not hearing any, we'll move on from public comment. We will move on to review and vote on outstanding Finance Committee meeting minutes. The Finance Committee meeting minutes that we have to review are from February 24, 2026 at here in the auditorium in Town Hall. Has everybody had a chance to review them? I know in attendance was myself, Mike, and Rick. Does anybody have anything to add or correct?
I just noticed that in number 5 it refers to Mr. Rossi.
Mr. Rossi, well, we can
That's my dad.
we can change that to Mrs. Rossi.
Here's the document, I'll take that.
Yep.
You're okay.
Okay, if there's anything else? Nope. If there's nothing else, we have a motion.
Make a motion to accept the meeting minutes as is.
Second? Rick?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstained? Okay. 301. Correct. 3 approve, none against, 1 abstaining. As she was not here. Okay, let's move on to the next item. Okay, and item 4 is discuss the proposed fiscal year 25 budget items. That includes preliminary budget breakdown. Items. I know that Jill and Steve both passed out, or Jill's passed out some information specific to this just before the meeting. Steve, Jill, do you have anything to?
I'll go through and explain what I gave you.
Sure.
So the colored sheet is the income and expense, the summarized from this current budget process. I show side by side the estimates with 40% free cash and 50% free cash so that you can kind of compare and contrast to make a decision more simple-ish. The free cash distribution for the annual town meeting, which is the lined spreadsheet, it has the 40% amount, the 50% amount, and then it has the 40 and 50 without the stabilization refund. Here, what I gave you. It's stapled with this. Show and tell. Get a little show and tell. So,
Rick, I'll send these over to you later, okay?
Thank you.
So just so that you have all of the information in front of you, with and without stabilization, we expect to be refunding stabilization instead special town meeting instead of annual. So I gave you those numbers. And then I'll let Steve go through this.
Any questions for Jill before I move on? Okay.
We'll wait.
So this is a little bit different than years past with our budgeting. We were unable to get a tri-board meeting together. So we decided it would be best to meet with the Finance Committee first, get your recommendations, and then go to the Select Board with those recommendations. So we're hoping to get through that tonight. Select Board are meeting on March 16th, and I plan on having an agenda item to go over what I'm asking you tonight, just so we can have some direction to finalize our budgets. So we have a couple of questions that have come up. Jill put together just a quick information sheet. They're in no particular order, just the way that they landed, so, but we will take them in order. Well, I'm going to skip the second item until the end, because that's a separate agenda item on your meeting agenda. But the free cash, that question has come up recently. 3 years ago, I should say 2 budget cycles ago, we started on a path of reducing the amount of free cash that goes into our operating budgets. Prior to that, we were putting in about 100% of free cash, give or take. If there were some special projects or something, maybe some came out for capital, but for the most part, it was about 100%. And DLS flagged that as something that we should look at. We began with a 20% reduction. We went to 80-20. Following year, we went to 60-40, which is where we are currently at. There was an expectation that we potentially would go to 40-60, with 60% going into stabilization, OPEB, and capital. The preliminary budgets came in, and we were using a 50-50 target. That has not been codified. That's something that we will need to discuss and, again, get a recommendation from the Finance Committee. And that's why Jill has put these numbers together with the FY27 estimates at 40% of free cash and 50% going into the operating budgets. And the reason why we went with a 50% in our first round is because the other side of that is we've heard the Select Board and the Finance Committee loud and clear, and we've started to tighten up on the amount of free cash. We're budgeting a little bit more carefully. We are watching our spending a little bit more. So free cash was a significant reduction this year. So it took away on one end, and it kind of made us rethink this a little bit. So that was the proposal. So those numbers are in front of you. We can go over them if you want, or you can just ask questions for them. That is on the second page, the free cash breakdown. It does show the FY27 amounts with 50% and 40%. It shows, which is part of a future discussion, if we set aside $108,000 of free cash to pay back the stabilization fund, which we don't feel is going to be necessary this year. So that's also there. And then the FY26 numbers just for the comparison, so you can see what happened with the amount of money that was available.
So I just have a real quick question. How does reducing free cash going to the operational budget affect our free cash following year?
Well, it really shouldn't, because our budgeting is based on available revenue and expenses. So the available revenue, part of that is the free cash that goes into it. I guess it does impact it slightly, because if we continue to have a decline in the amount of free cash, then even if we stayed at 50-50 for the next few years, the amount of money going into operations would be less, because we have less on the other end. Now, next year, we know we have a couple of one-time sources of money going into free cash, and we can talk about that at another meeting, but we know we have a check coming from Pathfinder for the lease of Cold Spring School, and we sold Franklin School. So both of those total about $250,000. And that money will be in free cash next year, because it was not budgeted this year. It was not allocated to anything.
All right, so what you're saying is at this point, the $108,000 to repay the stabilization fund might not need to be
Yeah.
paid off the
I-
top because of other changes.
Yeah.
that are-
So I guess let me talk about the other changes, and then you can go back and start revisiting them amongst yourselves one at a time, because they do all influence each other. So since the health insurance premiums have gone up, and calculations were made on what our deficit would be, there has been I'm not going to say significant, there's been enough participants who have dropped the town's plan through the trust that there's going to be marked savings on both the schooling and the town sides. In working with Superintendent Cameron, he's identified $200,000 of health insurance money that can come back to the town. And this is FY26 money, so this year's. Jill has been able to identify about $100,000 on her end, which puts us up to 300, give or take a little bit. You know, I think when the final numbers are in, we might actually have a little more on the town side. So what we are proposing is that at the special town meeting, we repay the loan from stabilization. If we do that, then there's $108,000 in FY27 free cash that we can put back into that formula, back into the chart. So whether it's 60-40, 50-50, a certain amount will be available for operating expenses, which we would split with the schools to help offset cuts. And the other portion of it would go into OPEB stabilization and capital. So that's a pretty easy decision to make. I think we owe it to our taxpayers to pay that back as soon as we can. We promised them 3 years. If we can do it in 1, I think that makes a lot of sense. If we don't do anything with that money, then it would just roll into free cash for next year. So I would rather address it now and show our taxpayers that we're being responsible with their funds.
If we didn't pay back, well, if that money's unused, and we get to the end of the budget cycle, the end of the fiscal year, because that was allocated special town meeting specifically for those purposes, there's really nothing the town can do with those funds, except for either revote it at special town meeting to be used for another purpose, or to pay it back.
Yeah, the schools have some leeway. The town would have to revote, but the schools have decided it would be best to turn it back, and I think that's the right decision. And I certainly support that. I think it is the right thing to do. You know, the taxpayers were gracious enough to lend us that money out of stabilization, if you will. And I think we owe it to them to put it back as soon as possible.
So am I right that it ends up in free cash regardless, right? It's just a matter of whether we're saying this is the payment for this and wiping that off or not.
Right. Well, no, if we voted at the special, then we can put it back into stabilization. It won't go through free cash. If we don't vote it at the special, then it rolls into FY28 free cash.
It's FY26 free cash that comes out during FY27, which will be available for budgeting
In
for
FY28.
FY28. So don't even try to wrap your head around that.
No, I had that. That's why I looked at her right away, because I knew I got it wrong, but yes.
So then it just depends on, it will still end up there, just the timing of when we can spend it is different.
Well, if we voted at the special, then we can't spend it. It goes into our stabilization, which is our savings account. If we want to spend it, we'd have to go back to town meeting and take it back out of stabilization.
Okay.
Well, I have some emails and stuff later in here for item number 7. But basically, the discussion we're having on this is the ratios for the free cash, not necessarily
Right.
and that $108,000 is in there, and it's not really directly relevant
Correct.
to the question this is asking. And I'm of the belief that because of what occurred with the health insurance and the uncertainty for this upcoming year, you would like to keep the split at 50-50 as opposed to increasing it to 60-40 or 40-60. And what would be the negatives to doing it? Besides putting more money into stabilization.
That's really the only one. Yeah.
And I know that the select board, I don't know if you want to speak to this, Nicole, but 2 years ago, voted and came up with a plan to move forward. And,
As far as the split?
yeah, I mean, is there any,
I mean, I've expressed wanting to stay on track and go from 60-40 to 40-60, but I guess one of the questions that I have is on this sheet, does this assume a 50-50 split? So when so for the town, for reductions required at 198,000, does that assume you're getting 50% from FY26 free cash? Okay.
Yes.
So it looks like you would come up short about 129,000 if we go to the 40-60 split.
If you look at the version that I gave out tonight, it has both the 40 and the 50.
It's the second column.
You'll see three
Okay.
columns.
Or second column.
So that's an
right.
old one.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about probably $130,000 of additional cuts that you would have to make. If we
It's about
30,
46,000
Yeah.
approximately.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the $129,000 difference, that's the difference between the operating budget at 50% and the operating budget at 40%. That's a $129,000 difference. Is that before the split?
Well, that's total. So if you
Okay.
look at the bottom of the page, the schools would go up 83,000 in cuts, and we would have to add in 36,000
Okay.
of additional
Yeah.
cuts. Subtract 36,000.
I mean, I just speaking for myself only, I'm open to considering the 50-50. I mean, it's been a fairly nice budget season and I'd like to keep it that way, but we did agree that we were supposed to go to 40-60 for this year.
How hard do you think it will be to find that difference, 30,000 and 85,000 in schools?
Well, I reached out to Brian today and he wasn't available, so I don't know when the school's in, but in my past conversation with him, he, was hoping that we could keep it where we are or less. And we're both in the same holding pattern. We're waiting to find out, what we have available fully for funds before we make those final cuts, but it wouldn't be easy to find it. We're already looking at some significant cuts.
Scratching a lot.
Is any of this taken in that 300,000 into consideration? Is that in here at all? Probably not.
Oh, well, the 108,000, no, that's not part of this
So
yet.
part of this, this assumes the $108,000 does have to be taken off the top, so it's going to be a little bit different if we decide not to take the 108,000.
So,
None of that is like 100% decided, so
so the 108,000 would be split 50-50 with 50% going into those three pools. The other 50 going to operational expenses, so that's 54,000. The 54,000 would be split 70-30 with the schools.
which is at the bottom of the distribution sheet.
So that would kind of give you a flavor for what we'd be putting back in. It's not a lot of money.
So then the 30,000 that the town has would be reduced by 16,000.
Yeah.
In half, and then the 85 for the schools would be reduced by 38.
That sounds right. Yeah. I didn't run the math on it, but that sounds right. Jill?
I did not follow that.
30, these two, it's 37,920 and 16,250.
Okay.
Yeah.
would be added back in, so it would reduce the reductions.
Would reduce the
cuts.
reduction under,
Yes.
this reduction.
Right.
Correct.
So, given the fact that we're paying the stabilization fund back the first year, that the year that we, 6 months after we borrowed the money, 8 months, but, and that was money that we did not intend to have in the stabilization fund for the next 2 years. And that's actually a greater amount, significantly more money than this 50, 60-40 split would make the difference of it.
Do you need a recommendation and vote from the finance committee for any of this?
Who are you asking, Rick?
Steve?
Oh, well, it depends on what form of recommendation the finance committee wants to make. You want to take a vote and recommend something, or?
I think we should.
Yeah. And there's another piece to this puzzle, and that's, it appears as though we're going to have some extra Pathfinder money. I have been told to expect a reduction in our assessment of upwards to $80,000 this year. We're going to have that exact number tomorrow night. Pathfinder is part of our fixed cost. Ordinarily, if we wouldn't even be talking about it. It would have just been rolled into the fixed cost, and it would have just came off the top. But because we carried last year's number and then found out there was a significant reduction, it came back up in discussions. That's a good thing to have. It's a good problem. We had talked about potentially using it for some capital, but this year we have, which we're going to talk about in more detail, but we have capital coming off of our rolls, and we need to replace that payment with another payment. So we're also proposing that the $80,000 go back into the operating budget, which would be split 70-30.
As it normally would,
As it normally would.
as
Yeah.
part of fixed costs.
Right.
It wouldn't have been a question if somebody didn't make a suggestion of doing something different. It would just go plugged into the income and expense where, within fixed costs, and it would make those adjustments accordingly.
So one of those two adjustments put you back at the 198, essentially?
Well, what we're hoping is if we maintain the 198 with the 50-50 split, we put the 108 back in, which would reduce that by 16,000 on the town side,
38.
38 on the school side. The 80,000 from Pathfinder would be split 70-30, like any other funding, which is
24. And
That's 40,000, so you're taking it
Yeah.
from,
so that would get us down to about 150,000 in cuts. So it's not that's, if you think about it, I guess that's 25% of what we're trying to cut.
And what is that 80,000 from? Pathfinder saying they don't need that?
Yeah, so, and we're going to get more detail on this tomorrow night, but there's been a slight reduction in student population from Belchertown, but there's also been an overall increase in population due to the out of district enrollment, which my understanding is it's similar to school choice for them, where they're allowing
Participate.
member communities to send students. So what that did is it diluted the factor. The total number of students goes up, so Belchertown's percentage goes down. So that's a good thing. And, there was some concern that it would jump back up next year, but if he's going to continue with the out of district enrollment, then he really should. So yeah.
do we have details on what the 198, 150, 190,000 would consist of? That's
We have a draft list. There's been some money that's been moved around to try to plug some holes with staffing and needs, as well as other cuts. But we don't have the exact detail yet, just because we don't have the exact number. So we're working on that. So that will be available on the 23rd. Well, I hope to have it to everybody before the 23rd so you can read through it. But for the tri-board meeting that's scheduled on the 23rd, I'm confident that we will have a budget to present, and I'm pretty sure the schools will too.
So going from 100% to 80%, 60%, 20% is quite a bit when you're talking, nearly $1.5 million, $1 million. And that number gets smaller every year. And basically, you're asking to keep it at 50/50. Was it 50 fiscal year 26?
No, it was 60/40.
All right, so instead of going to 40/60, you just want to go to 50/50. Would that be request for a single year? It almost seems like doing that much every single year seems to be a large change. With maybe it should be more gradual.
Well, I think the reduction in free cash was surprising. I don't think we expected upwards of $300,000 reduction in 1 year. So that's what really kind of raised our concern with doing both at the same time. So it would almost be better to look at it every year and look at all of the circumstances rather than try to make these leaps arbitrarily. I know that theoretically it made sense. I think, I can't give, enough credit to the select board, the finance committee, all the departments who have worked within that parameter of getting away from 100% of operating free cash going into operating expenses. I mean, we've gone from almost 100% to 60/40 or 50/50. We're making 50/50 work. Making 40/60 work is going to come with a little bit of pain.
What's our percent of stabilization fund right now? Are we up to?
3.58. I did it like last week, but I don't think I have it with me. It's about 3.58 of the $61 million budget.
And what is the recommended ratio?
Previously, the recommendations were always over the years 3 to 5%. Now they're saying 5 to 8.
Yeah, they bumped it up.
5 to,
Well, they're saying total reserves. So that's a little bit
with OPEB and
everything else. But is the percentage you quoted after we get the loan out?
I believe so.
Okay. So if we put the loan money back in, it raises that percentage up. And then this year we were proposing to add another 177,000.
So Steve, do you recall what the DLS's recommendation was of what the split should be? Should it be 100-0, or do they have a recommendation?
I don't think they had a lower limit. I can double check that. I don't think there was a lower limit. I think they just said.
I mean, I'm sure 100-0 is what they
that's what raised the red flag.
Yeah.
But I can look at that again. I don't think they expected us to be at 0. I think they acknowledge most communities do
Sure.
put a certain percentage back in.
Yeah.
I'll double check that before the 16th.
As a tri-board or a bi-board, I think that it's important for us to make a promise to ourselves every year of what or set a goal at least. So I get it. Every year is different, and we shouldn't be, relying on hard percentages that we're going to go to. But I also feel like if we don't set goals for ourselves, we'll get lazy and we won't continue to come down. So again, I'm going to be open to recommending, going to the 50/50, but I just want to make sure we're making a promise to ourselves every year that we're setting a goal.
I agree with that. I think without really knowing what those cuts would consist of and knowing that the numbers are so, 30, 40,000 the town, and I get it more for the schools, but my preference would be to keep the discipline. We've set this, and I feel like 2 years ago, or maybe it was 2 years ago, we had a chance to be less conservative and we stuck with it. So I feel like if the dollars were larger, I would be more likely to say 50-50. But I don't know. It seems like because they're smaller, it's easier to do it now than in the future where we don't know what's going to happen. But I also don't know. I hear you saying you're scratching, so I get that too.
2 years ago, at 100%. To now being at 50. I mean, that's a heck of a leap.
Yeah. In 3 budget cycles.
I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for that scheduled change to drop by 10%, but we're still going in the right direction. If those funds are really needed. It's not huge money, but on the school end, there's a lot of changes going on down here on the town side. There are some stuff. I think we've got a better foothold on what to expect this year.
Can I just suggest something? I guess you have an awful lot of college students, but all in all, if we come up with some statement that says exactly what it is and where it's going, I know the guys that like to really appreciate that. It's in there about percentages, 50, 40, we go here, this one there. I'm having a difficult time following exactly what it is that we're going to take and go where.
Yeah, Rick, so we just got one of these sheets handed to us, or a few of them just before we started, so. Basically, it's, a few years ago, the select board and the finance committee voted to stop taking 100% of the free cash, certified free cash at the end of the year, and rolling it over into the operational budget. They dropped it down. The 80% would go into the operational budget, 20% would go to stabilization. And then the next year, last year, which was fiscal year 26, 60% would go to operational, 40% would go to stabilization. This year, for fiscal year 27, it was scheduled to go 40% operational, 60% stabilization. It looks like Steve is asking that we just drop it to 50% and 50%, as opposed to 60 and 40.
That's, thank you,
Yeah.
we also say how much is going to be returned, and I'm just trying to get a solid figure, and then also get into about this, and I understand now the whole split between operation and stabilization.
It's on the sheet that we were provided. It very well may be on the one that I emailed to you to get ready for this, the colored sheet.
I just texted you a picture of it, if that's helpful.
Oh.
Brian, this is Teresa Bernard here. I believe the numbers that the state recommends that we spend no more than 30% of free cash for operating expenses.
Is that accurate? I mean,
Doesn't sound unreasonable.
That is the goal.
okay.
Thank you, I do have these two sheets, so.
All right then, so if the goal is to get to 30%, do we want to recommend a change in what was previously decided, or do we want to move forward with maybe recommending a change to 50/50? It seems to be a request tonight.
I mean, I don't have a strong preference either way. Like, it's not that much money. I think sticking to a discipline is important. I also understand, needing a little bit of flexibility.
Yeah, it's just hard not knowing what those reductions are going to consist of. And just that would,
Yeah, that would help, just so we know.
right, what are we
How-
agreeing to cut?
And it's hard to know until we have a number.
Right.
So, because there will be a lot of like moving parts to getting to the bottom of that.
Yeah.
I mean, a scenario, like if you could do a scenario of the 150, then the 190, like low, medium, high, I think that would be helpful, but we're asking for a vote tonight.
Are you guys available on the 16th of March? Our select board meeting? Finance meeting is up. I'm just throwing the idea out there. I try not to deliberate because there's three of us here, so that's what I mean by it. Just throwing an option.
There's 4 of us here. Not that it matters, but I think so.
I'm just throwing an idea.
Well, I mean, it seems that, I mean, we have two choices here. I don't think we can keep picking decisions to the next meeting at this point. We're so late in the cycle as it is. Leave it at 40-60 split, 40% operational, 60% stabilization, or recommend to the select board that would change it to 50-50.
With what we have, I'm comfortable with 50-50. Just based on what we have at this point.
So you want to make a motion?
Sure. I'd make a motion to, I guess, change this 40-60 to 50-50.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, yes. I've got to do roll call. Rick?
Aye. You along?
Got it. Mike?
Aye.
Katie? And I'm aye. So 4.
And the 50-50 is for free cash?
Free cash and stabilization. So half the certified free cash will go to stabilization, half to the operational expense.
Okay.
So while we're talking about jumping in to talk about stabilization again, at this moment versus a $61 million budget would be 3.56%. I was pretty close. Once we put the $300,000 back in, and I just put flat 300, not 325, which probably we're hoping to get there, it'll be 4%.
What about what will it be after we put in 50% of the?
I didn't look at that.
So it'll be a lot higher.
A little bit higher, yeah. It'll be a
So
little bit higher.
I think that's a really good question, because that brings me then to the next question is, do we have any leeway with changing the percentages that go between capital stabilization and OPEB? The reason I ask is that if we hit our recommendation on stabilization, should we instead increase our capital percentage from 65 to whatever, 70? Because capital is a major need right now.
Yeah, I guess, if we're looking between 5 and 7%, we're probably going to hit that in the next few years. So I think we should probably talk about it then.
Who sets those percentages? Did we do that
Select
last
board
year?
did, yes.
We did it last year. We did
2
it at
years
the
ago.
board, right?
Yeah, this is
2
the
or 3
third
years
budget
ago.
cycle with
Okay.
this new, focus.
Yes. Okay.
So, and I guess to Lisa's point, if 30% is the bottom, which I believe it is, I'm sure she has the document in front of her, maybe we look at 10% a year for the next 2 years, or, if things really look good next year, maybe we do that 20% jump in 1 year.
Well, no. I'm talking about,
As far as right.
yeah, I'm talking about, if we hit our recommendation on the stabilization percentage, could we look at maybe going 25% to stabilization, 70% to capital?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So one of the things that the DLS has been recommending is that we increase our amount of borrowing for capital. And this is coming up at number 7. No,
Great.
number 8. So we'll be talking about it, but we are dropping debt this year. We need to replace that at a minimum. Next year, I would like to add to it.
Yes, bare minimum.
What we may want to start doing is, we have guaranteed 500,000 coming from the override, the capital, which we could use for bond payments. It doesn't have to go to items that you can kick. It can certainly go to a loan to cover the capital. I know some of the big capital projects like the Jacobsbrook Middle School roof. The MSBA program will be looking at those types of projects in FY27, so we're not quite there yet. So that's probably a year out. And if they follow suit with that project, that's $2.5 million. So that could easily eat up a lot of that 500,000 per loan if we need to.
Is that for a roof repair?
Yeah.
Is it for anything else?
No, the windows and doors are separate.
A full roof replacement.
So instead of repair and replacement.
That's a replacement.
Anyway, let's move on to number 6.
Before we get back to that question,
Sure.
the new debt, there were examples given by Authorization Group. How would that affect the distribution for the future for the percentages? Would there still be a required adjustment? You did sort of 50, 60, 40, whatever you want to call it, but I'm trying to get my hands around what the new debt would cover and capital expenditures that's going to be required for the town going forward.
Rick, we'll start talking about that in detail when we get to number 8, but it's we're replacing existing debt with new debt. So that would be the same bucket of money. It would not be, it wouldn't change anything with the operating budget.
But aren't you receiving, say, $2 or $3 million in funds? Isn't that what the debt is?
Well, it would be for specific projects.
Okay, that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out.
And then the payment would be with the money that we're using for payments on debt that's going off, that we're doing final payments for FY27.
Okay.
So our total debt load will be about $250,000 less in FY28 than it is in FY27. FY27, we're already very, very low.
Okay.
So we need to replace some of that debt in order to keep our bond rating and for all reasons, to keep the money available. Like once money becomes available, if it gets used elsewhere, then it's hard to bring it back into debt.
No, I understand. I appreciate you clarifying that. I'm just trying to figure out if this money comes in, will we still be required to fund capital expenditures at 50/50, or could be reduced instead of all?
Yeah, it's hard, without a crystal ball, sometimes it's hard to figure out what the right answer is. But I would suggest we are so far behind on capital that it's unlikely that we're going to catch up. I think the Capital Improvement Planning Committee is sitting on, I want to say, $15–16 million of total capital requests. And those would have to be indexed by inflation annually until we get through that list. So I doubt that we're going to run out of need. So let's table that for now. I think that would be a great thing to have, but I don't think it's going to come to fruition.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so let's move on to number 6 here, Pathfinder. Tomorrow we're gonna we'll have the FinCom will be attending Pathfinder's budget presentation. We will post the meeting, and we expect approximately $80,000 in a reduced assessment. And my understanding is you want a recommendation on what to do with that.
Yeah, or, you know, again, that's a fixed cost. Ordinarily, that would have just been included in operational budget. Because it was set aside as a fixed cost and became available, there were public discussions about it, and it was suggested that maybe we use it for capital. I would recommend against that because we know we have to borrow for capital this year. And I don't think it's going to be necessary to utilize that existing $80,000. We already have a pretty good pool of money, cash on hand, if you will, once it's voted at town meeting. And then we're going to be borrowing, so I am recommending that we put that $80,000 back into the budget. So it should be a 70-30 split with the schools.
Right, so if we were to do that, which seems to be the most, that's what I thought originally when I read about it. Would that go to offset some of these required reductions?
Yes, that's where.
As you indicated on the other sheet. I mean, so our choices are to recommend it basically going to capital, to operating budget, or
Well, I think the normal procedure would be for it just to go directly into operating budgets, which is where it's intended to go as available revenue. Anything different than that should be a recommendation from the Finance Committee. Or you could obviously vote to support just moving in operational budgets.
Do you recall where the recommendation to look at putting it back to capital came from?
Yeah, Mr. Ritter brought that up.
I'm trying not to talk because of all of this news already, but yes.
anybody want to make a
I was
motion?
thought
on
about that
this?
before we had the bond stuff. I knew.
Yeah, that was before we knew that we were going to have to borrow.
Recommend to the select board what we do with this.
You guys in agreement that you should go to back to just cut the reductions?
Yeah,
Sorry.
go to operational and then split it 70-30 and was set aside for Pathfinder, then we just roll over the same amount of money. It's going to be less. We won't even know until tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to put the 80,000 back into the budget. Help offset these reductions.
Isn't that the normal process? So wouldn't we have to vote if we were going to use it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you can vote to recommend that it be handled in the same manner as we normally would, which is what.
Make sure you're on that.
I don't think we should put a number of $80,000 on it, but whatever reduced assessment is. Yeah.
Oh, it's true, because we don't know the final number yet.
Sorry?
And that money goes back to what we go to the school?
No, it'll go back to the operation budget and split 70-30, just like all our other operational funds. We have a motion. Rick, do you want to second it?
I second that motion.
Discussion? Okay, we'll vote now. Rick?
I'm good. Okay, thumbs up.
Mike?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Aye. That's 400. Any return, a reduced assessment, the Pathfinder will recommend to the select board be put back into operation. Okay, now we'll go on to item 7, which is some, which you alluded to earlier, Steve. We had not all the funds that were borrowed from the stabilization fund for the purpose of paying for increased health insurance costs for town employees. Actually, was needed because of changes in plan enrollment.
And this is the 200,000, correct?
Well, the schools have 200,000. The town side has approximately 100,000. And so it seems the intent is to put this back into stabilization and pay this loan that we took back immediately. Or at least a majority of it, and not have to worry about it any further. That will bring back up our, our percentage.
Yeah, that'll bring us back up to 4.4%.
Yeah.
So just for accuracy, the loan was $325,000. We are hoping to get there or relatively close. If we don't, then next year at this time, for 5,000 or 10,000 off, we can make some adjustments as we go. That is, we're going to hopefully get there.
My big wild card in that $25,000, yes or no, is snow removal and the deficit there. That's making me a little queasy.
Why don't we make a motion that the unspent health insurance funds budgeted with and not put in a policy here, give a little bit of flexibility for you guys to put the money back into the stabilization fund.
Is that a motion, Rick? You're on mute.
I said, that was a question. I can make a motion if you want to.
No. So, I mean, basically, they're just looking for us to recommend to the select board that we repay the stabilization fund back with funds not used, that were earmarked or borrowed from the stabilization fund. Back into the stabilization fund, so. If there's anything, we can't use it for anything else without approval at special town or annual town meeting anyway, so it just makes sense.
Why don't we make a motion to have unspent health insurance funds returned to the stabilization funds at the town council's discretion / town manager?
Is that your motion?
It was a question, yeah.
Well, you're only making a recommendation to the select board. They will have the final vote on that. So it doesn't have to be exact. I think the flavor of it is you support this. So, yes.
Second? Discussion? We'll do a roll call. Rick?
For it.
Mike? Aye. Katie? Aye. 4-0-0, it passes. To recommend to the select board that the town manager and town accountant repay, or the town repay, unspent health insurance funds to stabilization fund with discretion for emergency costs that may have come up.
As a little side note, that will be a vote at special town meeting, just so that everybody is clear. Yes. It'll be on with an article and a motion. You're welcome.
Only town meeting can spend money.
Want me to take the borrowing?
Sure. Okay, next is borrowing. This is an interesting one.
It is and it isn't. I guess what I'm looking for is the Finance Committee's support to maintain our existing payment level, which is about $250,000 to $255,000. Well, let me back up. We're paying more than that annually for our loans, but we're going to be dropping debt that will result in a savings to our payment line item.
Dropping, you mean
you're paying it off, like that's.
Right.
Right.
Final payment.
It's satisfied.
So we will be freeing up approximately $255,000 in available funds that we use for borrowing. So this year, I want to maintain that level. I want to borrow enough to make sure that we cover that payment so that we don't lose ground. And then next year, when we know more about the longevity of Jabersbrook Middle School, and we have a better handle on capital improvement planning, we can add toward that. Capital Improvement Planning Committee has been meeting. They have their FY27 list pretty much buttoned up. They're working on FY28 through FY30. And once we have that, we can pull items out of there that have either a 10-year life expectancy or a 20-year life expectancy. We don't have to do a single bond. We could do a 10-year for shorter life items and a 20-year for items that have a life expectancy of 20 years or more, as long as the combination thereof works out to the $255,000 payments annually. So I gave you the debt service schedules for both 20 and 30. Depending on what we pull together, we're going to make something work. So I don't have those lists. I've been promised by the CIPC that I would have the final lists by the end of next week, and then we can start trying to pull those items together. We don't go blindly in the town meeting. We go with a list of items that are being funded under those bonds. So the Finance Committee will certainly have a chance to review all those items beforehand and review the final numbers. But it's right now we're just looking for your concurrence that you want us to maintain our existing level of debt.
Is the rate then for the term loan or for loan?
Yeah, I'll get you the rate schedules, but right now for the 20-year, we're looking at 4.5%. And for the, 20-year, we're looking at 4.5%. 10-year, we're looking at 3.75. And it's fixed.
Once the paperwork's signed, it's fixed.
Correct.
Those numbers could change between now and when
Yeah.
we are.
Final numbers are obviously a little bit different, right? That was a quote, I think that quote's 2 weeks old.
Are you looking for feedback on the 10 versus the 22, or just maintaining?
No, because we don't know yet what items have a 10-year life expectancy and which have a 20. So we're going to have to play with those numbers. I think what I'm looking for is just your thoughts on maintaining a $255,000 a year payment. And then we can go back and kind of revisit that a little bit.
I mean, I personally think we should be borrowing more than that, but doing more work. We're currently spending $250,000 to $265,000 a year. You can't move that over operation.
No.
And we shouldn't just throw that in stabilization. We should use that to invest in the town.
Once it goes into operational, we're not going to see it back. And that's why we want to maintain it. And again, next year I want to add to it. Next year I want to have a discussion about the $500,000 we get through the override and using a portion of that for borrowing.
Well, it's for capital, right? If we're borrowing for capital purposes, it's
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with the term. I feel like going for issuing one set of one tranche of debt and then going back, you're going to have two sets of issuance costs and things like that. So wouldn't it make sense to issue one big one? Do you not do that?
Maybe.
It may. Part of the problem is the projects aren't fully developed yet. The list isn't fully developed. CIPC committee's only in their second year, and they're still trying to get those things put together. And some of the projects require a lot of work on behalf of the town employees, and I don't know if we can lump too much more in. We don't have a lot of big projects developed yet and ready for borrowing. That's part of the issue.
And how long would you have to spend it once it's issued?
That's a good question.
Could people, yes, that are joining us to go to meeting, please be on mute.
Is the maximum you're looking for is 3.25 million? You guys hear me?
Thanks, Steve.
Is the amount you're looking for maximum 3.25 million?
Not necessarily. We're really more in a position where we want to control the annual payment. So however that shakes out based on the useful life of whatever the capital projects are, it's probably gonna vary.
So
Probably not all of it will be 20-year items.
I guess to get through tonight's discussion, once I have the plan from the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, I can look at what projects are ready to go, and if it looks like the payments would exceed $255,000 a year, I can look at directing some of that $500,000 towards those loan payments. And again, all this is going to be back in front of the Finance Committee because you need to make a recommendation at town meeting. So the final capital list will be inclusive of any of that borrowing. So we can talk about that, in more detail once we have all the data.
It seems at this point, this is nothing more than a formality to recommend that we continue to take on debt. Paper projects and investments
Why don't you table it?
into the community.
Keep looking at this thing.
This is not for specific borrowing. This is just to maintain debt that we have. To recommend that we do.
Well, the thing is, the topic you can table it for a special to get the final number. That's all.
Yeah, really all I need is your consensus that you want us to try to at least maintain that payment. And if that's the case, then that'll be my goal. The select board may have a different opinion, but I don't think they're going to go contrary to maintaining that amount.
Works for me.
Yeah. So as long as I have your consensus on that, I just want to know what the flavor of the.
Do you want us to vote to recommend this to the?
You don't have to, as long as I know you support that initiative.
I don't think anybody's against it.
Yeah, and again, it was a DLS recommendation. It was a strong recommendation to increase that.
Okay, then we will not vote, and we do concur as a finance committee that we want to continue the current monitoring.
At a minimum.
Anything else? Anything to come up for the? Anybody online?
There are a lot of things we could discuss and finance people from other committees that the money, you know, we want to address that again, or any comments or whatever.
Given the cycle and where we are right now, the biggest group that we would, or committee that we would want to discuss with would be Capital Improvement Planning Committee. I did attend their February, I believe it was February meeting, or one of them, and several of them, and it was very interesting. But they were not ready. The biggest thing that came out of that, and we all agree, we've talked about that here as well, is departments in town using operational expenses for capital. And to hear the level of spending at the school department for that was concerning. Many of us knew it's been going on for a long time, but it's got to change, and I think that's one of the things that we're doing, I've actually reached out to the facilities director a few times for the school department over this period. And I did receive some information on one of the main projects, and it's asbestos abatement within the older buildings, particularly Jabesh Brook, and limiting that to like 2 classrooms a year at a much greater cost than if they did the whole thing at once through capital, through a bond, by bonding the project, or just out of capital funds instead of operational funds. And we did have some discussion about different options with the Jabesh Brook roof. There are multiple options out there, but I think waiting first quarter of fiscal year 27, I believe MSBA will start entertaining roof repair projects. They put that on hold for a few years because costs just they skyrocketed, and there was no consistency whatsoever. There was no telling how high the project would get. So that got put on hold, but it looks like they're going to open it back up in fiscal year 27, which is good. Don't know how big their budget is. Don't know if they'll entertain our application, but it would be nice to have a plan in place with the school department in case they don't get accepted to the program. We got to do something. So.
Has the school been spending one room at a time on asbestos abatement because it's been disturbed and there's a need to?
Nope.
Just.
It's not friable in any way. It's safe. They're doing it because DLS wants to see progress. That's how Eric explained it to me. We'd have to ask him or Brian exactly.
So what I was saying was that we invite those people from these various communities. They don't have to come to every single meeting, but if there's a need and it's going to be presented, I think it would be favorable if they came here and pleaded their case. That's all.
Okay. Nobody disagrees with you. Nope, we're all in agreement.
And I said you disagree with that.
No. Nobody disagrees. It would be nice. Communication is good. This cycle has been awful. Not awful, but it's tri-board meeting at the end will be set and being set for the 23rd. But and having to, we have a week after that when we have to exclude the budget. So then we have a week after that to meet and vote on the warrant articles, financial warrant articles.
Town meetings May 10th this year.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives us a little bit of time to put things together. There was a suggestion that next year, like end of December, we sit down, or at least get all the boards to agree to dates, going forward. Because it's easy for people to book time, with everything going on in their lives. So I think that's what's happened. And we may have waited a little too long trying to get the majority of all 3 boards together. We know we need a chair from each board and a quorum. And I think in the past we strived to get as close to 100% participation as possible. But I think next year we're going to have to take a little bit different of an approach. Somebody's usually away, but I'm always available. Jill can be available. We can always update people. They can watch the meetings to get updated so that they're not left out in the process. Going forward, we'll take a
I don't think there's any problem trying to with any time meetings going. I mean, how many doodle polls do we?
Oh yeah, we tried.
It's just nobody was able to.
Correct.
To commit a quorum. There's not much you can do about it. All right. Is there anything else?
Just to clarify, town meeting is on the 11th.
The 11th.
I was going to say the 10th is Mother's Day, and I don't want to spend it with y'all. I'm just
Agreed.
I wouldn't. Okay, so if there's nothing else, motion to adjourn?
Second. Oh, motion made to adjourn.
Second.
Rick?
I'm for it.
Mike?
Aye.
Katie?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Good weekend.
See you, Rick.
This conference will now be recorded.